Hello, welcome everyone. I hope you're joining us from the virtual watch party that we had in Miami, or at the Miami Film Festival for The Mole Agent. This film was originally programmed at the Miami Film Festival in March of this year. In fact, the director, Maite Alberdi, who's joining us now from Chile, was actually here in Miami. But we weren't able to screen the film just by one day. But we have pictures. We can prove it.
Yes, we can lie. We can say that we showed.
Yeah, there you go. But The Mole Agent is opening in the U.S. today in virtual cinemas across the country. It's a film. If you're at home, watch it with your family. That's a very, very important aspect of this film, and support your local art cinema as well. If there's a local art cinema that has booked the film, please support them when you're renting it. I just wanted to thank a few people before I introduce our filmmakers. First of all, thank you to Tom Powers, our genius programmer, who programmed The Mole Agent at Miami Film Festival. Thank you, Tom, if you're watching. Also, thank you to our promotional partners for tonight's live Q&A, Cinetic, POV on PBS, where the film will have its broadcast premiere next year in January, WPBT2 South Florida, good friends at CineReach, and Gravitas Ventures for providing us with this opportunity. So now I'd like to introduce live from Chile the director of The Mole Agent, Maite Alberdi. Welcome, Maite. As well as the producer, Marcela Santibañez. Welcome, Marcela.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity.
It's great to have you with us, and congratulations on the film and all the success so far.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start off by asking what the genesis of this film is. Where did the idea develop from?
Well, it's I think a starting point, because I start thinking that I wanted to make a film about a private detective office, because I love fiction films about detectives. And I wanted to make a documentary film noir. And I thought, okay, I never saw a documentary film noir, and I wanted to make one. So I started researching in all the office that the ex-FBI or the retired FBI put. And I worked as an assistant of a private detective for a couple of months. And working with him, I saw different cases of moles, and I at the beginning I thought it was going to be a series about different moles, but it was super complicated to make, and we chose the case that was more interested for us. That was the retirement homes in general, and he usually worked with a mole, and his mole broke his hip a couple of weeks before, a couple of months before shooting, and that's why he needs a new one. So he put the ad in the newspaper, and he make interviews. So all the process to choose a mole is part of the film. But for us, at the beginning, was completely about a case and a private detective, and then we discovered that the film was the focus of the film was in another place. But the beginning, it's as the beginning of the film, like our focus was there, but it was a trouble to move in another place. And the film, I think it's the same in the structure, like our own travel. It's the travel of the narrative.
Okay. So in watching the film, I'm aware of that you're employing, some almost narrative storytelling techniques. It feels, like you're very much shaping a story. and mixing that with observational, traditional observational documentary. And in fact, there's this the lovely scene where we see Sergio's point of view, and we see the crew, in the reflection. So did you think about that, or want to play with our kind of sense of what's happening in terms of the approach versus of storytelling versus observational documentary style?
No, indeed, it was. O sea, I knew that for me, observational style, it's the way to make a fiction. It's like if it's a fake fiction in some way. Like when we speak about fake documentaries, are fiction that are trying to imitate the language of documentaries. Like they put interviews, they put archives, they put voiceover. If I have to make a fake fiction, it's like what I do, like to make an observational super control with the camera here and the other frame. Like it's a fake observation, a fake fiction for me is the documentary that I make. But at the beginning, for us was completely like we want to stylish this and to make a documentary that really seems as a film noir. So our visual reference was that we worked the light with that, we worked the art, we studied the movement, the lens, everything to try to control the mechanism, but to leave the reality move alone. So but we want to disappear as a crew, of course. But in the editing, we realized, showing the cat, that a lot of people start like, yeah, well, but what it is? And I say all the time, like, it's not a problem, like, it's a film. But a lot of, mostly documentary filmmakers that we show the film was like, no, but you have to say that it's reality because it's super important to say it. And for me, it was, I don't need to say it. It's reality, like, it's. No, you have to be clear because it's super confused. So I don't know if this happened with the general audience, because the general audience think that it's a fiction, and I don't care. But the filmmakers, it's like, you need to explain it. And at some point, like some producer told me, like, you must put like a card at the beginning explaining how do you go into. It's like, I'm not going to do that. So how can I do it inside the narrative? So it was like, okay, we have to show us, and we have to explain how do we enter. But as we didn't thinking in the shooting, we didn't have enough material. It was like the pieces that we have when Sergio showed us, the small piece when I explained to the daughter, but we didn't have more. And probably if we thought in that before, we will have more, and it was going to be more in the narrative. But it's a moment only to explain and to say, okay, that is what we do. It's a documentary, so let's go into the film and don't care about genres and classifications and leave the story. So yeah, but it was an editing decision. It's not my style, indeed. I don't work like a reflective reality, like with distance, explaining how do we do the film. Yeah.
Well, it's unique. It's a very unique film, and again, when we're talking about, you're just talking about the editing process and the decisions that you made there. So there's a lot of lighthearted aspects to The Mole Agent, which is why it's so fun. It's such a fun and entertaining, almost bubbly movie. But it's mixed with some more somber moments, particularly in the second half of the movie. One of the scenes that struck me the most was when the woman who had talked earlier about her brain, betraying her, or mind betraying her, had a moment of anguish where she just was feeling not herself. How did you go about striking that balance to get the tone that you wanted? Was there an abundance of one type of tone that you had to mitigate with with the more lighthearted aspects, or can you talk about that?
Yeah, today we were speaking about the film with all the crew that they have recently seen, like the cinematographer and the sound man and all the crew that were during the shooting, and they say to us like it was weird for us because we live a comedy and we see a super dramatic film. So in our memories we have super good moments, but in the day by day, but the narrative of the story or the structure, it's a drama. So for me it's like the sense of life, like you can be living a drama because some characters really pass away, so we really live that death in the shooting, but our memories are with laugh all the time. So I think that the film have that equilibrium that we can have in life. Like you can be living a bad moment, but you can have joy during the morning. I don't know. It's a emotional travel, and I think that the structure is dramatic, but the day by day situations are more funny or are more light in some way to say it. And maybe the starting point of the film, it's a comedy, like okay, you have a private detective that hire a 85 years old man that has never worked as a spy, and he has to training, and all the contracts are absurd or ridiculous because this piece cannot be in the same place, like a spy in a retirement home, an 85 years old man looking for a work. So everything, it's weird and funny, but at the end the reality is hard. So but in the same time we think that that's the starting point, that it's more as a comedy tone, allows you to enter to a hard topic that maybe if you go like direct to them as an audience, you're going to avoid it, because reality it's enough hard to go to the cinema to like say yeah, it's a film about loneliness in retirement home. Like I don't know if I want to see that film, but I really want to see the film about a spy, an old spy in a retirement home. So I think that, but it's not a fake invitation, because in some way, as the crew say today, we really live that comedy in our shooting. Like we really live that problems that, okay, this is the worst spy in the world, he's going to be discovered, like Marcela, like it was like the third day he wanted to go home. It was like a lot of production problems also that make it this film not secure until the end of the shooting. Like we really didn't, even if we developed it for 5 years, we didn't have the film until the last day of shooting, because every day was a risk in that.
Marcela, have you ever produced a project like this before? Is this what were some of the surprises that came out of as a producer for you?
No, I mean, I have never produced a film like this before, because I think that a film like this have never existed before. Like, no, it was, imagine, I mean, from the first moment, I mean, when Maite just told me about the idea, it seemed like this roller coaster and it seemed like really exciting. But once we were there, it was really nerve-wracking at many moments, because as Maite said, like there were many things that you kind of, you have, like we did the research and we could predict some things, but the main thing is that we couldn't really know what was going to happen to Sergio, and we were always really, really scared that he got discovered. What if he gets discovered? Like, what do we do then? You know, so that was something, and it was 3 months that I think we didn't sleep well. Like 3 months that we had like stomach ache, nervous of what might happen. And as Maite told you, like there was one day that he actually like told us, I'm quitting my job, I'm going home. And Maite and me were like, oh my God, what can we do? And I had to go like to his house, and I tried to explain, and I was so nervous because also I mean, I have produced 2 films. I don't have like 25 years of experience, you know. So it was the first time that I was in a situation like this, and I started talking, and I couldn't handle it, and I started crying, like desperate in his living room, like, please don't quit, you know, like my life. I was thinking like how I'm gonna pay like all these investors, like the funds. What am I gonna do? Like we already have pitched this project. Like I was really, really nervous. I mean, I think at that moment, he realized that he had a commitment with his boss, who was a detective, but there was also another commitment with us. And then I think he realized and he said, like, don't worry, I'm gonna finish my job. And then we could breathe. And then when he finished everything and he left, we were with Maite like, we did it, you know, like, oh my God.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Wow. That's well. The film. Actually, might say this is true of all your work. All the work that we screened at the Miami Film Festival in particular. But your films, they bring us into a world that's often invisible in the media, and you introduce us to that world with the complexity and multidimensionality. So what draws you to that aspect of wanting to make the invisible, so to speak, visible and through your art?
Yeah, I think it's, well, probably we premiered this film in a moment that this topic is more visible than in Sundance in January. For us, it's really weird. We thought that, for example, on Saturday we opened the newspaper here and was a big article like about depression in all people. For us, it was like super it was a topic of the film and a topic that we really lived for years. But after the pandemic, it's in the news and it's in the agenda, and everybody is speaking about and everybody is speaking about the distance with all people. So it makes a new sense to the film for us, because for us it was a film that was going to open the eyes for people, but the pandemic opened the eyes. So the film is something that now came in a moment that the people it's more sensitive to this. So it's the same of my previous film, but it's the first time that I have an audience that it's like really connecting with a topic that they were avoiding. Like the grown-ups, when I make the premiere in all the world, that it was until now a topic that is still avoided. And we are like really experience something like a catharsis in the audience now with the film, that it's weird for us. But yeah, I feel I work with micro worlds, and how in the micro worlds you can see societies. Like for me, in the grown-ups and here, for example, you cannot say, ¿cómo digo unívoco en inglés? Como un mensaje unívoco con una sola lectura. Like a one-line message about old people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Each people inside that place is a
Yeah.
world. Like
Yeah.
you
It's
see
not one dimensional, like.
Yeah, I cannot speak about old people in general with the mole agent, because at the beginning you see a group of men that at the same age are looking for a job. Then inside you see people with dementia, people that it's good but it's missing their families. Sergio that really want to live his painful loss of his wife. Each character has his own world, so you cannot make a speech about them. For me, the grown up was the same. What I learned making the grown up, it's like I cannot say like Down syndrome people, because each one is completely different and each one has his own challenge. It's like with my friends, I cannot speak about my friends. Like I know each one is a world. So I think in this micro worlds that are isolated, you can recognize yourself and society in general, because each person has a role, and I am really attracted to construct that world and to see how they are isolated, but it's exactly the same that all society in their roles and the rules and the movements and the thinking and everything.
Thank you. I got a question here. There's our audience on Facebook is invited to. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. I'm sorry that. But if you do have a question that you'd like to ask, just type it into the comments section in Facebook. And there is one first question here. Where and in what locations was the film shot? Is this? And actually, I wasn't clear myself, because sometimes Sergio was talking about back in Santiago. So is it outside of Santiago? Where is it? Can you tell us about how you found this particular nursing home, or you know, where is it, and how did you come to shoot there?
Marce.
Well, it's in El Monte, which is a location like 40 minutes away from Santiago. So that's why when he says like back in Santiago, it's because there's like a 40-minute drive. It's not like we are in another world. But it is actually quite different because it's a small town. So the vibe of the town is pretty much the vibe of the nursing home. So it has the magic.
You know, yeah, Maite, one of the questions I wanted to ask you also was, you know, there's such incredible moments that you capture in the film. And I know in documentary filmmaking, there's a lot of, you know, waiting for those moments to happen. But do you as an artist begin to sense when something is happening as you're watching people interact, as you're watching the people in your film interact? Do you have a sense that some moment might be coming that's important for you to capture? Or how do you stay, you know, kind of sharp and attuned to those moments while you're waiting?
Yeah, I think that I always say that we are like actors, that we are paid for waiting. Like our budgets are expensive because we spend a lot of days waiting, and in some way, like we have someone told me the other day that with my previous film, I always spoke about my shopping list. Like I make my shopping list of the narrative things that I knew that I already see in that place, and I wanted to for my script. So I went to the shooting with my shopping list, like waiting until I have the thing that I was waiting, and it's like, okay, take it next in my car. So I am waiting for something, yeah, and I have a previous script that it's completely rebuilt and rewritten in the editing room, and the story changed. But the main things that I'm waiting, I think that I know what I'm waiting. Of course, that reality surprised you, and you have new things that you were not expecting. Like I was not expecting that Berta got in love with Sergio, for example. That was something that, of course, that I cannot expect. And if it's happening, yeah, we are hoping to shoot that, of course. But as I knew Romulo from before, and as I knew the detective job, I knew what he was going to ask to him. So I knew what I was waiting in that place, in the case, not in the result of the case, but this yes in the important thing that he has to research. So I know what I'm waiting. Like today with Paulo, with the cameraman, I always say the same example, but I think that we learned that in our first film, in The Lifeguard, that the lifeguard, it's a film about a lifeguard that it's afraid of water. And he thinks that the best lifeguard is the one that never goes to water because he prevents. But the problem is that he works in the most dangerous beach in Chile. So even if you prevent, there is a risk. And we were making the research, and I thought, like, okay, he's saying that the best lifeguard never goes to the water, but I need to have a rescue or a scene in the film that you put that theory in pressure and he has to go to the water. So I need that scene. How can I shoot that if the beach is really big and you can be shooting in one place and someone drowned and you
Mm.
are going to arrive in the perfect moment to that thing that happened in 5 minutes? So
Yeah.
how can I plan this without putting an actor drawing in the sea, of course? And it was like, okay, I started a study 2 summers before all the behaviors of that place to understand how the people move and how are the the routines or the
Mm.
kind of characters. And reading the statistic of the Marines in the research, that it, of course, the information that it's not in the film, it's part only of the research. I realized that the people drowned in that beach always, always, all the summers someone died in that beach, and it's always between 5 and 6 p.m. in the same corner. So why the moment that we were shooting that it's going to happen in another moment? So what did we do? We spent all the summer at 5 at 6 p.m. in the same corner waiting for that scene until that scenes appear at 5:30 in the same place of all the 10 previous years in the statistics. So uh, you don't know when the things are going to happen, but you know what it's going to happen, and you program
Yeah.
your dance, you program your shooting to have that scene. And in that sense, it's probably really near of the job of a detective. Like
Mm.
my job, it's really similar of Romulo job. And working with him, I realized that he passed all day waiting on following someone until to have the perfect picture and the proof to show to the client. And it's the same for me. I spend all the day waiting my scene until I put rec and I have
Mm.
it, have my proof that it's my scene of that reality. So it's not so different.
Yeah. And may I add something small? But also in the retirement homes, also life has a routine that it's, every day is kind of similar to the previous day. So also there was something in the retirement home itself, like the women that go to the door, they go every day at the same time to the door. So we always, like Maite was also prepared for that. And for example, the party, we knew from years before that their anniversary party was always like a huge thing, and it was in the script because we knew that that scene was going to be important, because those anniversary parties were always like these crazy situations. So
Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot of patience, but it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. So obviously because of the current circumstances, you weren't able to have any public screenings, but do you know if Sergio has seen the movie now that it's out in Chile, or the other characters at the retirement home have seen it? Have you heard from anyone?
Marce.
yeah, I mean, there's a funny anecdote about the retirement home when they saw the film, because actually, like, of course, they never knew that Sergio was a spy, and they never knew that this was a spy movie. And we needed to tell them, like, the name of the film is The Mole Agent, and they were expecting a film about a retirement home, that it was what we told them when we went to shoot there. So I think, like, one of the most, like, nerve-wracking moments for us was the first time that we were going to show to the director of the retirement home the film, which was previous to the premiere at Sundance. So they were actually the first one that ever watched the film, because we wanted to make sure that they were happy with it before we started, like, showing the film. And we got together and they went to, like, the editing room, and Maite was like, okay, thank you for being here, we need to tell you something. This is actually a spy movie, Like Sergio, you remember Sergio? Yeah, he's actually a spy. He was like, he knew us, and they were very nervous. And we were like, but don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. Like, you're gonna love the film. And they were really anxious watching it, and they loved it, and they cried, and they laughed, and they like, and then like we had their approval, and we were much more relaxed. And now, yeah, of course, now everybody's watching it. All the people from the retirement home have watches, and we have a lot of comments from, for example, the families from the old people there. Many of them have actually passed away, so they are very, very like happy that their parents have been like immortalized or something in this film. So it's been very emotional in that sense. And Sergio watched it, but honestly, he didn't give us too much feedback. So he said, like, I really like it, but we were a little bit nervous because he wasn't too expressive. So we need to dig a little bit more to see actually what he experienced, because so far he just said like, I really like it, and we're like, yeah, but give us some more feedback. But
Yeah, but he said like I really like it, and I try to don't connect. So it's like it's super painful. He said it's super painful for me to say my friends that pass away. So
yeah,
I try to say it like more as a film, and he told that I don't want to share my emotions or like to go
yeah,
depressed for this. It was like I want to take a little bit distance with the film. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's Sergio, though. That's what makes him a good spy, is that he's got a good kind of, stoic, got a bit of a poker face,
Exactly.
He's not a good spy, but he's a good character.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
How do you feel that maybe the attitudes in Chile towards the older generation, or the culture's interaction with them, compares with other places in the world? Have you thought about that? About how the film might play in different cultures around the world? I mean, your films have always traveled to many film festivals. They've been extraordinarily successful. What kind of impact do you think it'll have, outside of Chile?
This is a special film because it's the first time that we have a co-production with. It's a 5 countries co-production, so it's really special for us. It's the first time that we premiere a film in the US with a distributor. It's going to be all the countries. It's a theatrical screening on it.
Release.
So, release. So for us, it's the biggest film that we had made, and I think it's because of the co-production why this film is so universal, because our crew producers at the end were not only the people that put the money for the film. We were a creative collective team
Collaboration, yeah.
collaboration that in the editing we shared the cut with all of them, and it was like a United Nations meetings to discuss the cut. So the German put some point that we never could see. So we study cultures like making the rough cut taste, but at the end that makes the film more universal because each of them work to make the film work in their countries. But for me as a director, it was not only like a producer rule. It was a creative input that was super useful, and I'm super grateful because we choose producers that we really admire their previous works, so we trust their opinion. So we wanted to listen to them. So I think that improved the film and that make it more universal. And I think that you can connect, maybe not with the main character, but you can connect with one of the infinite characters that are there. So that make the film more universal also, because you can see, okay, Sergio, it's like my grandfather, or not. You can see, like, okay, my grandmother has dementia as Marta. It's not, as I say, it's not one speech about old age, so you can feel the identification with any character of the film.
And sorry, may I add something small?
Yes, of
And
course.
also, I think that there's also really something universal in the topic of old age itself, because even though it's like a specific world in El Monte, in this retirement home about Sergio, like everybody in the world has somebody that they love that they're old, or everybody in the world is going to get eventually old, so everybody at some point really thinks about what's going to happen with me when I'm old, or how do I, what do I do with my parents. So I think that the topic itself is quite universal, and especially nowadays with the whole pandemic COVID, it's very contingent, because we are realizing how difficult it is to be far away and how difficult it is to get old. So I think that's also something quite special, that although it's very particular, the story itself, the topic is it's universal. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to say, I mean, one of the things that I love about movies is that I find that, the great art, great movies, they remind you about something in life that maybe you've forgotten about. And I remember having that sensation when I watched La Once, Tea Time. I had that same feeling of wanting to think about my older years, and wanting to make sure that I work at having those connections later in life. It's not, they don't just come. You have to continue, you have to build them, I think. And that was something that La Once taught me. And it's, maybe I forgot, and it really came back to me when I was watching The Mole Agent. So, thank you for the gift of this film. It's really special. It means so much to me, and I know everyone I have spoken to have seen it. Most of the people are in the film festival world, because it's just getting out to be the public now. But I think this is really an extraordinary gift, and I just want to thank you both for making this film. It's just it's superb.
No, thank you.
I thank you, and I really feel like at home. It's Miami Film Festival for us. It's so important. Like, I really think that we make like a travel together with all the films. So I'm honored, like, that we can still be connected by the films.
Yeah, no, you're very special to us too, and I think that's all the time that we have. I don't see any more questions from our Facebook audience, but good luck with the run, and I know that the film will be very popular here in the U.S. as well. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Be well. Mucho besos.
Besos.
Ciao.
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 Thank you.
Ciao.